morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time it is when you're watching this episode. Welcome to Kapow. I'm Sonya.
And I'm Al. I probably would have just gone with hello, but that's a personal choice. We are back here at Kings Comics for what I think will be a very eclectic show. Don't you think, Sonya?
Eclectic, adjective, made up of elements from a variety of sources. Yes, I would agree.
I should explain. Okay, Sonya was running a little bit late, so I figured we could just use the robot version of Sonya that her evil twin invented and just use that to do the intro. I mean, it sounds complicated, but just go with me on this, okay? Sonya, what are we looking at today?
We have a review of Chew, Volume 1, Taster's Choice. We also have a preview of a couple of new titles from Humanoids and Image. Battery low.
Okay, well we'd better hurry then. Ray will be in to look at some fantastic Hellboy collectibles because it's his 20th birthday. Not Ray's, Hellboy's. And because of that, we're also looking at our top 5 Hellboy stories. So it's going to be an awesome show, huh, Sonya? So... Oh, okay. Okay, this was not my best idea, clearly. We'll figure something out. Don't worry. Okay, come on. Okay. Ow.
Cards on the table, Chew is not a new series.
Nope.
It began its publication in 2009 and has gone on to critical acclaim, becoming a New York Times bestseller and winning an Eisner Award for Best New Series.
Yeah, absolutely, but you know what? I never read it until recently.
No.
Because when something becomes hugely popular, you know what? I'm an awkward person.
You
I'm
are.
as likely as not to just avoid it and read something else.
And I read a lot of comics and, occasionally you miss them.
It's true.
You miss one.
Yeah, and you know what? If we missed it, there's a chance you missed it as well. Hence, the review.
Chew, Volume 1, Taster's Choice, tells the story of police officer turned FDA agent Tony Chew, a regular guy with a rather extraordinary talent. Tony is a chibopath, a person who can gain psychic impressions from food. He eats an apple and he can tell you where it was grown, who picked it from the tree, what kind of aftershave they wore, and so on.
But, of course, if he eats a piece of a dead person, he can tell you much more, which is where this series gets its fairly creepy hook. I mean, it's obviously a very useful talent for a law enforcer, and writer John Layman is not afraid of the grotesque. I think what really drew me to this story, though, is the excellent concept of America's fear over the bird flu epidemic causing a nationwide ban on all poultry. Chicken becomes the most taboo of contraband, and the FDA becomes the most powerful agency in the country.
And the whole focus on food, this story really makes you consider it in a very different way. Beyond Tony's psychic gift, we also meet a woman named Amelia Mintz, who is a Sabo-scrivener, which means she can write about food in a way that makes people actually taste the food that she describes.
Which is just the beginning of the inventive weirdness of this series.
Yeah.
And also, Rob Guillory's artwork is really effective. There's a great sense of motion, particularly in the action scenes, and the character models are unique, to say the least. Mason Savoy, Tony's partner in the FDA, is a personal favourite. He's described in the character sketches as the love child of Orson Welles and a grizzly bear.
I can see that.
But I kept seeing him as David Ogden Stiers, who played Charles Winchester in MASH. Maybe in his later years when he was playing John Johns in that terrible Justice League movie.
Okay. Regardless of who they look like, there is no denying that all the characters look fantastic.
Yeah.
Chew is a fresh concept and it's a hell of a lot of fun to read. I'm giving it a tasty buy.
Ooh, a tasty buy, okay. Obviously a lot of people have read and enjoyed this series before now, but if, like us, you missed it, then believe me, it is worth a look. I'm giving it a buy as well, and I'm never going to look at a roast chicken the same way again. I'm hungry. You hungry? Want to get, like...
Beets. That's all I want. Hi, Ray.
Hi, Sonya. Hi, guys. Do you mind if I ask him a question?
No, go for it.
All right. When was the last time you walked into your comic book shop or your pop culture store and saw that there was a Hellboy figure or statue sitting on the shelf?
Yeah, you don't see a lot of them around, really, do you?
Exactly. And you'd think that you would because, Hellboy's a pretty big thing. Well, at least his right arm is anyway. But I would think that you would see Hellboy figures everywhere, but you don't because as soon as those suckers hit the shelves, they're gone skis.
That's true, but you did manage to source a couple for today.
I did, with help thanks to some Kings staff members. They know who they are. Jim and Steve.
Thanks, guys.
What we have here are the Abe Sapien and Hellboy animated statues. They are both Dark Horse Deluxe figures by Diamond Select, based on the Hellboy animated films Sword of Storms, Blood and Iron, and the unreleased The Phantom Claw. They're sculpted by Tony Cipriano. This guy's work, I gotta say, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Seriously, he can do anything. And if you're keen on checking out his work, you should check out his show reel on YouTube. It's awesome.
Ooh, but back to these statues, I gotta say, I really love the look of these guys.
Yeah.
Their lower limbs look nice and lithe, which indicates a level of dexterity.
Yeah, and at the same time, well, more so with Hellboy, distorting elements of other features. I love Hellboy's massive arm and that chunky pistol, which kind of reminds me a bit of that Toon revolver from Roger Rabbit. It's cool. Yeah, and they're meant to be companion pieces, but, you know, aside from them standing on the same outcroppings, like, I don't really feel that they're part of the same scenario, that they're telling the same story.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
And when you look at Hellboy, the sculpt says a lot more about the character. You have this thin, angular tail, the raised eyebrow, and even his proud chest all reflect that sardonic personality he has. Abe, on the other hand, offers very little beyond being a rather average representation of the character. So let's break him down. He can survive underwater.
Yes.
He's an excellent marksman. He's a formidable hand-to-hand combatant.
He's also extremely intelligent.
Exactly. And look, I don't know how I would portray this particular figure, but I just know that this, to me, I don't think this is a successful model of all those qualities.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with you. Abe, he just doesn't do anything for me.
No.
There's something about the colouring of the scales over his head that kind of blend together. He looks a little unfinished, like they've missed a step. I've seen other figures that have made these a little darker, which I'm much more a fan of. I think I'm gonna bury him.
Right, well that's fair enough. Look, I'm thinking along the same lines. I like the determination in his face and the balance of the character, but as a secondary character, excluding the BPRD series, I think I want more. I want an extra push from these characters. Give me a reason to put this other character on the shelf next to my Hellboy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm gonna give this one a berry too.
Yeah, but with Hellboy, that's definitely a buy. I love the movement in this piece. He also has great paintwork, and the small elements like the trench coat flicking around make the design really catchy.
I like this statue, I like it a whole lot, but there's part of me that isn't captivated by this animated version. I think I'd prefer to have, something akin to the rugged look of the comic books. I want something that's a little grittier, so I'm only going to give this one a borrow.
Okay.
Yeah, but for those of you who are looking for a collectible, a Hellboy collectible to put on your shelves, there's something that's out at the moment that's pretty cool. You should check out the Hellboy Seed of Destruction limited edition. You can get yourselves a hard copy of Volume 1 and also a 3-inch PVC figure, which I think is pretty cool.
Yes.
Boom.
Are you being a cannon?
No, that's my right hand of doom.
I'm gonna go.
It's one of the really cool things about doing a review show that occasionally we get a bit of a sneak peek at something that's just around the corner. And what would we do with all that information except share it with you, Kapowians?
Of course, and in that spirit, we have a look at a couple of titles that are coming up with their Australian release in September, both of which revolve around the impact of war. First off, there's a new title coming from Image Comics called Zero, written by Alice Cott.
A clandestine agent working on the shady side of conflicts, Edward Zero is a man of sudden violence and uncertain morality, looking back on the actions that he has taken during a time of war. The series will follow changes in Zero from issue to issue, and it's visualised by a change in artist as it continues.
Yeah, and it's quite a good lineup of artists as well. Starting with Michael Walsh, and then bringing in Mateus Santaluccio, Morgan Jeske, Trad Moore, and Tonchi Zonchik in later issues. It's early days, but I think this title is looking like one to watch.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really fascinating series to follow. Now, the next one we have is from our good old friends at Humanoids, and it's a much more grounded story than Zero, mainly due to the fact that it's a true story. Beirut, 1990, snapshots of a civil war.
Now, you don't come across a lot of graphic novels that are also genuine wartime travelogues. This is probably the first one I've come across, but I think there's something especially affecting about this when you realise that none of this story is fabricated.
Yeah, I just kind of barreled my way into this one, and it wasn't until I kind of got halfway through that it suddenly clicked, and then I had to backtrack and kind of take all that on board. The story follows two brothers, Bruno and Sylvain Ricard, who travelled to Lebanon during the civil war in 1990 as aid workers, and it's quite an unsettling story in many ways.
It certainly is. I found it very gratifying, for example, that there's no attempt to make these two men into heroes. They appear to you as naive and foolish foreigners stumbling into one of the most dangerous places on Earth in search of a thrill. They function as kind of a stand-in for the willful ignorance of Western society, not realising the gravity of the situation they're in until they're confronted with it violently.
And visually, this is a very interesting book as well. To begin with, I found Christophe Gautier's artwork almost childish and basic, but the personalities of the characters embody these sketchy depictions and you really start to translate the images in your mind.
Whether the book would be as affecting if you didn't know that this was a true story, I can't honestly say, but the inclusion of photographs from their journey, when compared to the messy recreations of the images in the artwork, grounds it beautifully, and I did find this book something of a unique experience.
Very true. I think for anyone with an interest in recent conflicts, or indeed anyone who has an interest in how journalism can distort these conflicts, this is definitely a must-read for you.
Yeah, so that's our sneak peeks for now, but stay tuned for more up-and-coming titles and insider goss.
Goss?
Yeah, I can't carry that one off, can I? No. Withdrawn. You know, it's hard to believe that it's been 20 whole years since we first saw a group of occultist Nazis and a mad Russian pull a young demon through into our world and thereby, unwittingly, create their own worst enemy.
It's good times.
Weren't they though? And since that time, the Hellboy series has become one of the richest and most fantastic collections of paranormal awesomeness that you can find on the shelves.
I think it's fair to say that Hellboy will be the character that creator Mike Mignola will be best remembered for. Combining almost every kind of paranormal entity you can think of and wrapping it all up in Lovecraftian mythos, the series manages to be dark, scary, and funny all at once.
Yeah, we actually found it a little hard to come up with a top 5, largely because the Hellboy series often feels like one big overarching storyline rather than self-contained arcs. But for better or worse, here are our top 5 Hellboy stories.
Starting, funnily enough, at the beginning. We had to include Hellboy Volume 1, Seed of Destruction. This is where you need to begin the story, with Hellboy's summoning as a child, with the introductions to his teammates at the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense, Elizabeth Sherman and Abe Sapien, and with their first battle against Grigory Rasputin.
Yeah, it's a riveting opening chapter and a must-read if this is your first contact with the series. Now our next pick, again in chronological order, Volume 5, Conqueror Worm. This volume features Lobster Johnson's debut appearance in the Hellboy comics and has a fantastic focus on the existential crisis faced by Hellboy, as he is reminded that defending humanity does not make him one of them. A theme that is further held up by the struggles of the BPRD's newest recruit, Roger the Homunculus.
And don't forget the massive worm that wants to turn all of humanity into lizards and eat them.
How could I?
Yeah. Next up we have Masks and Monsters. Now, this one, I have to be honest, we mostly picked because it has Hellboy teaming up with Batman. In fact, the volume is all about team-ups, with Starman and Ghost both showing up to either help or hinder our favourite paranormal investigator. Seeing how these well-known characters interact with Big Red is quite a treat, and with James Robinson coming in as a writer alongside Mignola, it's interesting to see someone else's take on Hellboy.
Now the next pick may seem like an odd choice, largely because it falls outside of the main series and only actually features Hellboy in flashbacks. However, BPRD Volume 1 was the beginning of a whole new branch of the universe, and it deserves a mention. With Hellboy having quit the Bureau following the events of Conqueror Worm, Abe has to carry on without him, along with Roger and new recruit Johann Kraus, a discorporate psychic that exists within a special containment suit.
And of course, Kraus was featured in the second Hellboy movie, The Golden Army. Now, our final pick in our top 5 is kind of hard to talk about without getting into spoiler country, but we'll do our best. Volume 12, The Storm and the Fury, is a culmination of just about every plotline in Hellboy up to that point, with Big Red heading towards a massive paranormal war. This volume is also, both in plot and art, one of the peaks of the series and features a twist near the end that changes things for Hellboy and the BPRD forever.
But beyond that point, there be spoilers. So we will simply say that even if the previous volumes hadn't been so good, it would be worth getting through them just to get to the Storm and the Fury.
Very, very true. Now that's our top 5 Hellboy stories, but it's such an amazing series that I'm sure you've got your own favourites, either in Hellboy or in BPRD, so let us know in the comments section on Facebook or on Twitter.
Yeah, because we would love to hear your birthday wishes for Anung Unrama, so get typing.
Now what does that mean again?
It means upon his brow is set a crown of flame.
That's right. Nah, Hellboy's better.
Yeah, it's easy to write in a card too.
Or on a cake. Could you imagine trying to write
You
that?
would run out of icing.
Totally. And with that, we come to the end of another episode of Kapow, and there really is only one question left to ask. Why are there body parts in the storeroom?
Aha, now that is what happens when you hook a robot brain up directly to a wall socket.
Sorry.
I think it might need an adapter or something. Maybe it's not the standard 3-pin.
Yeah,
of a
okay,
European.
that explanation needs a whole other new explanation.
Well, it'll have to wait until next time. Guys, we have run out of time. Thank you for watching as always, and we'll see you next episode.
Bye, guys. Ow! Why does it look like me?